Hey there, welcome back to Journey Through John. I don't know about you, but this story, the Pool of Bethesda, really messed with me and made me think about some things the past 24 hours. And I want you to know that in my process, whenever I read the Bible, I always pray before reading, asking the Lord to show me exactly what He wants me to see. And boy, He opened my eyes to some things that I want to share with you today. So we find in John 5, one of the first of three healings that create opposition to the religious leaders around Jesus. This is our third sign that we're seeing. And so we see that there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem, there was a pool in Bethesda with five roofed colonnades, and I heard that described more as like picture porches where people that were physically ill, emotionally ill, with sicknesses or actually musculoskeletal issues that were in those porches. And there was one man that had been there for 38 years. Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had been there for a very long time. And Jesus said to him, "Do you want to be healed?" Well, that's a fascinating question, but I know for me, there are times in my life when I have troubles and I have sorrows. I feel possibly some self-pity or I feel stuck and I actually don't want to be healed, and I feel almost more comfortable in my suffering. And so Jesus asks the man, "Do you want to be healed?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool." Jesus said to him, "Get up, take up your bed and walk." And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and he walked. Now that man went away and he showed the religious leaders that he had been healed, and the religious leaders went, "What? Who healed you on the Sabbath? Why are you carrying your bed?" And that's just so perplexing, and it's just shows that when we are about our own agenda, we order things in ways that are important to us, not necessarily that are important to the Lord. And they're condemning this man for carrying his bed and being healed. And then they want to know who actually did the healing on the Sabbath. You see, there are, God told us to keep the Sabbath, but then man added, I believe there's about 38 additional rules for how one would maintain the Sabbath, but those weren't rules that the Lord created or wrote. And so, but these religious leaders were already suspicious of Jesus, and so they were angry that Jesus healed him. Very, very skewed, very, very twisted. Well, afterwards, Jesus found him. This is in verse 14. Afterwards, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." You see, the man went to the temple, and it was tradition that people would go to the temple to give an offering of thanksgiving when they had been healed, and that's what the man did. And so Jesus said, "Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." And I read about that because I don't believe that illnesses are directly related or connected to sin. They can be. Like, that if you worry continually, you will create an ulcer in your stomach. So, and God tells us not to worry. So we do see a connection with physical ailment to things that God tells us not to do, but it's not always that case. So from one thing I read, the thought is that this man was an invalid because of some choices that he had made that created great pain and ailment to his body. But ultimately he was healed. And so, but it does make me go to those people in my life that I pray for, and I every day pray for and ask for God to heal. And it makes me go, okay, that's great, but what about all those people, other people that God did not heal? and it challenged my thoughts about healing versus the process of healing. You see, I think in many respects that when we're suffering and we're going through something really hard, we just want to hurry to the finish line and get the healing. Of course, we want our loved ones to be healed. We want ourselves, the pain to be taken away. But it's truly the process of walking with God in our stuff, in our pain, with our burdens, that helps us see how much we need God and how much God will take care of us. It took me to 2 Corinthians chapter 12 with Paul, where Paul shares that a thorn has been given to him in the flesh, and nobody knows. People have researched what is that thorn. And Paul says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But he said to me, and he is God, God's grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And then Paul's response is, therefore I boast all the more gladly of my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weakness, with insults, with hardship, with persecutions and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. And so I'm inspired by this gentleman by the pool, but I'm inspired by Paul. You know, wherever you are in your journey, let us rest in the fact that God has a plan and can be trusted with whatever our suffering is at this time. For when we are weak, he is strong. But when he tells us to stand up, pick up our mat, and walk, let us do so with faith. Have a great day.